Welcome to RPG Book Club Movie Nights, the podcast where we play a tangentially related movie to a video game we have recently played and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Allman.
I am Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
And I'm Maddy Grace Webbin.
And today we will be discussing Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, which sort of ties into Septerra and the Planet of Seven Planets.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of.
It also doesn't.
Yeah.
We meant for it to tie in. There were going to be two tie-ins. One is that it's a place with multiple worlds within one world, and the other one was that it's bad. However, we all found out that it's actually good. So.
All the things that are bad about it are bad about every sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
So it's you can't even blame it.
Yeah. I think I even said last week that I didn't like the movie very much. You know how sometimes when you watch a movie a second time, the bad parts don't annoy you as much and you're able to focus on the good parts more? That definitely happened to me this time around. This is my second time watching it, and I really liked it. I kind of want to make my friends watch it with me in the next few weeks or something like that.
I have a couple of bones to pick with it that are probably and it's really minor stuff. And I'm
like that 30 minutes of it are a side quest.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say too, I'm not great usually at critiquing movies because I have a really strong ability to suspend disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a couple of issues that I had with it that I'll bring up when they arise.
Yeah, the thing that makes the movie bad, and it would be glaring for a person to watch it, is the leads don't have any chemistry because the girl is a very huge lesbian and has pure lesbian energy, so you do not buy that she's into this ugly dude this whole movie.
You know what? That's the main thing that changed with me this time around. I'm not saying they have ultra charisma, but I am saying they have their own weird kind of vibe. Spoiler alert, this is one of those movies where the guy obviously likes the girl the whole time, and she says no, and then at the end they get together. And the first time I saw it, I was like, that's so unbelievable. Why is she just into him now? Honestly, though, on a second viewing, and this isn't really me trying to apologize for the movie and pretend like it's better than it is, because I was just expecting to just dislike it. I think there's something there. But yes, it is definitely unusual, and she has huge lesbian vibes. But hey, maybe she's just bisexual. Most bisexuals, in my opinion, have a lot more gay vibes than they do straight vibes. In my experience,
very true.
I think we talked about this last time. I think we literally talked about this last time. I don't remember if it was on or off mic. But yes, she's extremely lesbian, and he is extremely heterosexual.
Yes.
Which is funny given one of the jokes in the film.
I wanted to mention real quick, I hate his voice. He sounds like he's making.
Why does he talk like this all the time?
When I was a kid and I wanted to pretend I was a boy, I'd talk down here like this. And it really...
Eli, maybe he's pretending he's a boy. Again, referencing a joke that happens in the movie.
Yeah. Dane DeHaan, I liked his low emo voice shtick because I thought he was putting on a shtick in Chronicle because it fit that character, and it does not fit any of his other characters. And it turns out that's just his voice, and that's just what we got to live with.
Yeah.
So if you're a director and you want to cast him in your movie, be aware that that is his voice, and you're gonna have to deal with that.
Sometimes that's just the way people talk, and that's fine. But
it's fine. We love him. It's not his fault. He's just, God just fucked up when he made him and gave him a dumb voice. But he's valid. But if you're a casting director, just consider that.
We do have a hard cutoff tonight, so I want to jump in and talk about the movie. But me and Maddy both have really big news. I don't know if Eli does. I just know me and Maddy both have been talking about it. Okay.
Nice.
Maddy, you can go first.
Sure. So my news is that I am in a new location. Given that coronavirus has been going on for a literal year now, you might have forgotten about this, but there is such a thing as other places.
Okay.
So my
Weird.
world has it's like when a game has an expansion pack, or I guess nowadays you would call it a DLC. Where it's like, where it's like, hey, we added a new city to this MMO, and you've been going to the same 3 regions for the last year playing the game. Well, now there's a 4th one you can go to, and everyone's like, whoa! Yeah, so there's now a new location that I can exist in a sea of locations not connected by any sort of realness. That is the Corona quarantine. It is my new house. I have moved. I'm looking forward to this.
Unfortunately, your mounts can't fly there until you get the Pathfinder achievement.
Yes, exactly. Sadly, you have to drive or transit. But anyway, I am in a new location. I am in San Lorenzo, which is not in Oakland anymore, which makes me sad. As y'all know, I love Oakland with all my heart. It's my favorite city in the world. I'm still not. I now don't technically live in it. I live in San Lorenzo, which is the burbs. It makes me feel like I'm back in Texas because, as you know, suburbs are the same everywhere.
Yes.
So whenever I never spend time in the burbs anymore. I spend almost all my time in Oakland or Berkeley or maybe San Francisco. So the fact that I'm in the burbs, I'm like, oh, I'm back in Texas. This is so weird. The streets are so wide. The yards are so existing. It's very strange. The malls are so strip. So I don't love that just because I don't love the burbs. I'm not a burb person. But the place is great. It is an in-law unit. I have a whole special little place all to myself in the backyard of a main, of a bigger house. It is a kitchen with a quote-unquote dining area, which really just means the kitchen is a little bit bigger than it needs to be. You can put like a dining table there, and a bedroom and a bathroom, and that's it. And I am here for another 9 days until my girlfriend arrives back from the war, and then the two of us will live here together. 2 nights ago, I had a friend over to watch a movie, and for the first time in a while, because of her living situation, normally she's not able to turn the movies up very loud because I come over late at night and her roommate has to go to bed because I work in the morning and all that kind of thing. And like, no shade, I get it. It's just annoying when you want to watch a movie, right? But because our unit is literally not even connected to the main house, we got to crank it up and watch the movie fucking loud. And I texted the housemates. I said, hey, if we turn the movie up too loud, let us know. I am going to turn it up pretty loud because I want to see, how loud is too loud. And they responded. They were like, oh, we never had that problem. And I was like, okay, this is good to know. So we watched we watched American Psycho, and we had it like literally. If we had it louder, it would have been too loud. And it was completely fine. They didn't even text me. They didn't say, hey, we can hear the movie. American Psycho, turns out, is one of the best movies ever made. I'm not going to go into it, but I lost my bonkers. Holy shit, what a great movie. It's a very, very, very weird movie. It's so much weirder than you think it is. Like, if I were to give you a description of the movie's plot, you'd be like, that's a pretty weird movie. But no, like, the directing and the editing and the music choices, it is one of the most bizarre movies. You can tell it's a directorial debut. You can just tell. Directorial debuts have a bit of an energy to them. Where they're like, yeah, that's right, I got my own style, bitch. Anyway, I'm wrapping this up. The point is, I'm in a new place. I'm really, really happy. The move was really easy. I mean, it was a lot of work, but it really wasn't too hard. I had 6 entire days to do the move and the clean and all that. And my new place is small and cozy, and I've got it arranged to be relatively cute. It will have more furniture in it in the future, so it will not be so echoey. Right now, the acoustics aren't great because there's nothing to absorb the sound because there's not very much furniture. But life is fucking good, man. And also, yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of Super Tuesday, which meant I got on a call with some of my comrades who helped Bernie win the East Bay and win the state of California. And we cried a whole lot and talked about our feelings. And I got drunk off of 0.75 beers because I am on progesterone now. So I guess that's just how it is. And that's my life. Welcome to March 2021. March round 2. Let's fucking do it. Let's go, baby.
Hell yeah. So my life is really good because I started my job on Monday and I love it. It's great.
Yay.
It's like real good.
Wait, sorry, not to interrupt. Did y'all hear that train?
No.
Good. Oh, glad to hear y'all didn't hear the train. Good. I wasn't sure if y'all would hear the train or not.
Yeah.
I live right next to the train.
But yeah, I'm doing IT again. So instead of just helping people install printer drivers all day, every day, and never stopping, I do that because I'm the most like printer qualified person on our really small team. And so it's one of those things where, excuse me. So like the company had an MSP, which is a outside IT group for those that have never heard of those, because I heard of it for the first time last year. But they had an MSP for like the last forever, but they kind of sucked. And now that I'm having to clean up their mess, they really sucked. But on January 1st, they started their new IT team, and it took them not even 2 months to be like, we can't do this with our number of people. We need a new person. And that new person was me. And so because we're real small and real new, everybody has like their niche. And even though we're all kind of on the same field, because the person with the most tenure started in October, we all still kind of like, oh, networking is Amelia's thing, and Office 365 is his thing, et cetera, et cetera. So my thing is printers, which sucks because I purposely left Gordon Flesh because I hated doing printer stuff, but here I am doing it. But now it's like, I don't know, it just feels like I'm helping more. At Gordon Flesh, it's like it was very business transactional, and here they're like, oh my god, I need to scan something and everything's broken. I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm like, well, I'm going to save the day because that's what I'm here for. And it's so nice, and I really like it, and my team is great. Instead of asking me what's a podcast on my first day, like Gordon Flesh did, I had one person reach out and shoot the shit about Stardew Valley, and the other one was talking about how hard it is to get a PS5. And I'm not with normies, and it's great.
Thank God.
There is one glaringly normie on the team, and you can tell all of us like are uncomfortable around her. Not like actually uncomfortable, but it's like, you know, because we have a meetup meeting every day where we basically just talk about what we have on our plates, and so everybody goes through and they do theirs, and then she starts talking, and she's just like, yeah, so I did all my training for the day, and because she's also new, I did my training, and I have some paperwork, and then I'm going to dive in and see what all of these databases are about, and we're just like, okay, whatever. And it's weird, but it's instead of everybody being uncomfortable because I started talking about podcasts, we get to be uncomfortable because she's not talking about the fact that Walmart dropped like the biggest stock of PlayStation 5s that have ever been seen in the wild today.
Sorry, to be clear, I just want to throw this out there. If you're at a workplace and your coworker starts talking about podcasts, you should be concerned.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm normal and it was weird. I'm saying that I'm a freak, but thankfully so is everyone else on my team.
If you or someone you love has a podcast, call the police. Actually,
save us, please.
But the other final thing is Gordon Flesh pays out its vacation, and I had 0 days of no work in between the two jobs, so I just had a free $1,000. Yes. That's not even my tax dollars that haven't come in. so I bought a 4K television, and it's nice. I really like it.
Stimulating the economy.
It's a real cheap one. It's like the $250 one from Walmart. It's only 50 inches, but it's a Roku TV that's actually made by TCL. And the reason that I got the TCL one is because our soundbar is a TCL soundbar, and the Roku remote is the only remote besides the shitty tiny one that comes with the soundbar that works for the thing, because proprietary bullshit. But that does mean I'm now living my best life down to one remote in the living room, and
that's great. Love that.
I love that. It's so good. But yeah, that's my week. I'm also doing that gross foot mask thing again, but you guys told me not to talk about it. But they're on my feet, and my feet are going to be beautiful.
Don't ever mention it again.
Yep, too bad. So yeah, let's listen. Who did the music? Was it Hans Zimmer? It's always Hans Zimmer.
I hope not, because I actually thought a couple times this music is very good, and as a registered Hans Zimmer hater, I would hate to have to give him credit for anything.
All right, let's see. Going to the cast and crew, because I was already on.
You have your Hans
IMDb.
Zimmer hater card.
Exactly. I will say I am not 100% Hans Zimmer hater. He has made precisely 3 really good soundtracks in his career. Alexander Desplat. He's a really, really good composer, so it makes sense that this movie has really good music.
Yeah, so we're going to listen to some of his music from this film, and then we'll talk about this film. Maddy.
Also, to be clear, the guy is French, so his name is definitely not Alexander Desplat. It's probably like Alexandre Desplat or something. So I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name, but I do not know how to pronounce it. So whatever, right?
Okay, spell it out for me, because I can probably pronounce it.
Desplat.
Desplat.
It's literally Desplat.
It would be Desplat or something like that.
Gotcha.
My high school French has mostly not steered me wrong.
So this movie is very French. It is Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. It is based on, if I recall, a long-running French graphic novel series, or French comic series. You know, the French are actually, quite known for their comic arts, and this is one of them. So it's one of those things where it's been around for ages, and they're finally making a movie. Probably a hard thing to do, because you got to pick, like, okay, what part, which arcs, which of the decades and decades worth of stories do we do for this movie, right? Anyway, and it's directed by Luc
the answer, if you're curious, is they kind of smushed books 2 and 3 together to make the movie.
Nice. That makes sense.
Because I looked that up.
The movie is directed by Luc Besson, who is also very, very French. Also, I'm pretty sure very, very child molester. But you know what? That's Hollywood, baby. I don't actually remember that. I know he's bad in some way or another. I don't remember which way. Anyway, he's famous for movies such as The Fifth Element or Lucy, which are both great movies.
I need to see Lucy sometime.
Lucy is a weird movie. What if you combined a really experimental art film with the stupidest movie you've ever seen in your life? That's Lucy. It's great. Anyway, so this movie starts off fantastic. Before the opening logos are even done, we hear David Bowie's classic Space Oddity. It's a little on the nose, but I think it works. It's also a great song, so I'm not going to complain. We see a tagline. It is a good
song, but I thought it was very cliched.
Yeah, we see a title card, 1975. We're treated to an incredible montage. The montage starts with the old-timey looking footage of the ISS, the International Space Station, in 1975. Then we jump up to the year 2020. Hey, that's last year. I wonder how they dealt with coronavirus. In 2020, The ISS is bigger. It had parts added onto it, right, as it got bigger and bigger, and a new little space capsule attaches to the ISS. And who comes out of the airlock but some Chinese astronauts? They greet the U.S. and USSR astronauts. Well, I guess they're Russians, not USSR. Actually, I don't know. Maybe this is an alternate universe. Whatever. The point is, they greet the American and Russian astronauts who are already there. They're clapping, they're hugging, they're so happy to be cooperating on like space stuff. Then we cut to 2031. The ISS is even bigger. It's this maze of modules. A fully multinational set of leaders greet in all these new guests. And they're all dressed very stereotypically. Like, there's these guests who are dressed like they're from somewhere in Africa. There's these guests who are dressed like they're from Japan. These guests who are dressed from the Middle East. And if it might sound like I'm being reductive, reducing all these places to Africa and Middle East, that's what the movie's doing. So there we go. South America. So everyone from all over the world is coming together in this huge space station. Then we cut to 2150. And again, this is all a montage set to Bowie. I really think this is a beautiful opening. 2150. Now the ISS is just... Not only is it absolutely enormous, but now it looks like it's from a sci-fi movie. It doesn't look like a classic, realistic space station. It's like been redecked out in sci-fi garb, right? Which makes sense. Anyway, a huge spaceship arrives at the new ISS, and they greet their newest visitor. Aliens, as my typo says. So this is first contact. The aliens shake hands with the humans and join the ISS in harmony. So now we see even more montage, but instead of people from all over Earth coming together, it's all these different aliens from all over the universe all coming and greeting the ISS leaders as they build the space station into this truly galactic symbol of peace. And here we see the first signs of what this movie is, which is that this movie is just full of visual imagination. Like, holy cow. Every alien, this is just a montage, but every new alien that shows up is like weird looking and funny looking and imaginative. Anyway, then we get a little bit of voiceover. It turns out that the space station has gotten so big that it's gotten to be critical mass. It's too dangerous to leave it in Earth's orbit. So they undertake a huge project to launch the entire station into the unknown, to spread peace and unity into the universe. The station is called Space Station Alpha. It's just called Alpha, and that is the city of 1,000 planets, because there's so many different cultures and civilizations all living together in harmony. So that's the main setting of this universe. So now we cut to 400 years later. We're on the planet Mool. It's an oceanic paradise planet. And these slender, elegant, humanoid fish people, they're sort of a mix between the Kaminoans from Star Wars Episode 2 and Zoras from Zelda. I am going to be calling them Zoras for the rest of these notes, because I forgot the name of the planet for a while. One of them wakes up...
I'm glad that all three of us had the same bit in our notes.
Yeah.
They were just the Zoras.
So one of them wakes up and she plays with her little pet critter. It's like a little lizard dude. And we learn about this culture. This culture is very based around pearl collection. They're all hauling in pearls from the ocean. There's so many. The main lady says hi to the villagers, but one in particular seems to have a bit of a connection with her. Maybe they like each other. God, there are just so many pearls. The village elder comes out to, inspect the pearls. This is all done without dialogue, really. The dialogue that there is not in our language, so we're just seeing what happens, right? So this village elder comes out and is like looking at the pearls, and she passes her hand over them, and her hand glows all magic-y. So now we're seeing that these people have some kind of biotic, relationship, maybe psychic abilities with these pearls. They're living in one with the universe, that kind of thing. Very exoticized. And she seems to pick out one pearl in particular. Maybe it's like special. And she presents it to the main girl. The main girl then takes the critter that she had, a little lizard, and she takes her lizard to like this pool of water, and then she feeds the pearl to the critter, and then the critter just starts barfing out pearls. Although it's not actually barfing out of its mouth. It's like they come out of its skin quickly. They just go, just tons of pearls just exuding out of its scales. and they all fall into a pool of water. And the pool of water starts glowing, and she does some kind of magic on it. So we're seeing that they have some kind of like cycle of life, you know, the pearls rejuvenating the planet. I don't know, it's like some kind of thing. And then, oh no, obviously this paradisical lifestyle cannot last forever. She looks up and sees something in the sky. It's some sort of meteor. One by one, dozens and then hundreds of meteors appear in the sky, flaming and heading down toward the planet. Everyone scrambles as their paradise is invaded by maybe it's a bunch of spaceships, except they're just crashing onto the planet. They're not landing, they're just crashing. The group approaches one of the downed ships and goes inside. Everyone inside is dead. Now, if you've ever seen a sci-fi movie before, you probably realize that a battle is happening overhead in space. They are not being attacked. They are what do you call it? Collateral damage. Maybe you don't figure that out, but you know, it's a sci-fi movie. That's the thing that happens a lot, right? As they explore, they see the biggest one of all, the hugest spaceship ever, and it crashes down on the horizon and makes an enormous shockwave. As soon as they see this, they're like, oh fuck. So they lock themselves in the downed ship to save themselves from the blast. But the character we've been following all along, who I believe's name is Leah, she arrives a little later, and she's trapped. She can't get in anymore. They've locked the door. So everyone, you know, they look at her out the window, they scream and they cry. And then, just as the blast is about to kill her, she makes this huge magic blast that goes out into space. And that's the end of our prologue. And don't worry, I will speed it up, but guess what? Every single thing about that is really important. So I had to make sure I was...
Absolutely 100% meticulously important to this movie, which I thought was really well done, actually.
Yeah. This movie is actually really plot dense, which is interesting. They don't have a ton of talking in this movie. I mean, they have a normal amount of talking, but you know how some movies are just like the characters just about lore for the entirety of the film. This is actually not like that, but what dialogue there is usually very important. So anyway, we cut to an ash-hole-ish looking young boy lounging on another beach. He wakes up. He had a weird dream. What we just saw is his weird dream. A beautiful lesbian appears and reprimands him for being lazy. They flirt with each other, but boy howdy, do they not have any chemistry. He tries to get in her pants constantly, and she rebuffs him for being an ass and a jerk. But now that I've seen the movie twice, I'm going to go ahead and butt in and say, I think they do have a weird chemistry. Also, one thing that's important about this movie is it's clear that they've been working together for a very long time. And when two people are together for a long time, they develop their own vibe. You know what I mean? That someone from the outside is like, what is with them? But it's like, no. If you did that to a random person you didn't know, they'd be like, what the fuck? But if you do that with someone that you've been with for many, many years, that's just normal, right? So anyway, they have a weird vibe. It turns out that they're both like some kind of mercenaries or bounty hunters or something. He's called, his name is Valerian, and her name is Laureline. He's also a major. One thing that's good about this movie, there's a couple of different characters that all have military titles, and there aren't two characters with the same rank. So I'm going to be referring to the colonel, the major, the general, the lieutenant, the sergeant, the captain, which is good because I definitely didn't get their names. So anyway, he's a major. He works for the military.
One of them is named Octobar. It's
probably
it's October, but it's spelled OKTO-BAR, and it just makes me think of like a tavern full of octopus.
Yes, it's the Octobar.
That's funny. Oh, the Octobar, right.
Yes.
Anyway,
or it's an idea that like your really drunk friend from college is like, dude, I'm gonna make the most money. Okay, I'm gonna open a bar. It's gonna have 8 bars. It's gonna be called the Octobar.
That's funny. So anyway, the reason I'm mentioning this is that he is in the military, but it's implied that she's not. So I don't know. Maybe he used to be a major in the army, and maybe he now still works for the army, but is like not, but like still works alongside this civilian as special agent or something. I don't really know. They don't really get into it. I'm sure the comic is very explicit about this stuff. So they're lounging on the beach, and she's rebuffing him. She says that he's a lady killer, and she could never be with someone like that. He says, "No, I'm not a lady killer. I'm not always hooking up with random people. I've been looking for the one, but you are the one. I actually do want to be with you." And she says, "Why would I trust someone who's obviously just scared of commitment?" They continue to bicker. Anyway, it turns out this whole time that the beach they were on is actually a holodeck on their ship. They are approaching their destination. They're about to drop out of hyperspace, or exospace, as they call it. Right before they descend from hyperspace, Valerian asks the computer, whose name is Alex, to scan his brain because he had a weird dream. The computer says, "Whoa, your brain is weird. It seems to have received some waves from an unknown external source. Unfortunately, I can't tell you anything more than that." So then we get to planet Kyrian. They continue to flirt and bicker and touch down. So this next big sequence is like a very lengthy, like 40 minute long, very, very cool heist action mission. It's not super important to the plot. I'm going to have to cut a lot out, which sucks, because it's really cool. But I'm definitely going to have to shorten this. Okay, so here's the mission. They have to, quote, recover the converter. We don't know what that is, but it's the last creature of its species. They need to mingle with tourists, so they dress casual, which means they dress really stupid. They meet with some troops at the and this is a desert planet. So they meet with some troops at the landing site, and they receive their odors and the plan. It turns out Valerian didn't read the memo with the plan, which is funny. So they arrive at what is supposed to be a huge city, but here's the thing. Instead of a huge city, it's a giant, like imagine Midgar. You know how Midgar has a giant wall around it? Imagine if there was nothing inside the wall. It was just a giant circular wall with desert inside of it. And inside the desert is a bunch of people wandering around in this desert where there's supposed to be a town. So they have to go their separate ways, Valerian and Lore. So Valerian asks her to marry him. He says, "You're right. I need to commit, so let's just do it." And she kind of just brushes him off and just like, seriously? So we split into two different groups. So here's how this city works. It's so cool. This place is called Big Market. Big Market exists in another dimension. Like, it's literally a parallel dimension. So that's why there's just a desert here. But if you wear this VR helmet, and all the tourists are all putting on their VR helmets, they're all like Beckies. They're all like white Beckies. It's really funny, actually. So they wear this VR helmet and wear these VR gloves, and the helmet actually allows you to see the other dimension, and the gloves actually allow you to interact with the other dimension. So it's not virtual reality.
Super fucking cool.
Yeah, it's not virtual reality. It's you're walking around in a desert, but your hands and your eyes literally exist in this other dimension, so you can see everything and be in the other place while not traveling there all the way. So
they do make it clear, I don't know if this is your notes later, that you can physically go there. It's just like expensive to do that, and so for just touristy shopping things, you just get the VR helmets.
Yeah,
but you do see some people go through like the CAT scan looking machine to actually.
I actually think they
get
probably,
to the other side.
if I had to guess, I would say that maybe they're like, no, we don't want people visiting here. We only want tourists. So this is. You know, you can't come here. You can just visit. So the cinematography is always cutting back and forth between desert and city because it's both happening at once. And whenever it's in the city, basically you see a huge, bustling, like Blade Runner-ass giant techno city with all these city folk walking around. And then you see these like holograms of people. So basically, to anyone who actually lives in the city, the tourists appear as like transparent holograms. Just visiting. Oh, you're just visiting. And you might wonder, well, how could you purchase things? Because the tourists are there to buy shit, right? Turns out if you buy something, you're carrying it around in your special gloves in the other dimension. But then when you get back to the entrance, you put it in a special box. And basically, if you put something in the box transports it from one dimension to the other. That's essentially how it works. So they got this big mission they got to go through, right? So Valerian, we learn all this, and Valerian enters the city. Meanwhile, Laureline and the other troops are doing their part of the plan, which involves being in the desert portion. They're not going into their dimension. They shoot a stun dart at a guard in order to take over his mind to be a guard. Look out, that doesn't really matter. This is the point where I said, okay, sorry, this movie fucking rules, actually. Again, sorry, I'm trying to go through this part quickly. Valerian goes off of the beaten path. Also, Lore, we find out that Lore has a special box. That thing I told you earlier about how the box can transport stuff, that's what this is. We just don't know what it is yet. Valerian meets up with the troop inside. He reminds him he needs... So he, instead of having a VR helmet and stuff, he instead has glasses. And he also has his hand inside of a box where basically it's a better situation. Now, when he's in the other dimension, he's invisible. So he's literally imagine if you just saw a box with someone's hand pointing out of it, floating around. That's all it is. That's all he is in the other dimension. And he can take the glasses on and off at ease. So he's able to like be both in the desert and not in the desert at the same time. But like you might wonder, what about walls? Well, it's all illusory. So if he didn't have his hand in the box, he could just walk through walls because he's really just in the desert. He's just walking around the desert. But his hand is literally in the other dimension. So then his hand would like hit the wall, right? I'm just making sure to be clear here on how this is working. Anyway, so eventually we get to his target. There's some mob boss dude, and he's talking with, it's the fish people from earlier, and they're buying the critter. So this is the last of its kind. This critter can replicate things, and they say, you give us the critter, we'll give you this pearl. And he says, they say, if you give us the critter, then we'll use the critter to make hundreds of pearls for you, dude. You'll have hundreds of pearls. And he goes, why don't I just do that for my damn self? So then they all pull guns on each other, and then Invisible Valerian shows up, and there's a crazy action scene. I'm not going to say much about what happens. It's just a crazy action scene. Lore shows up. All kinds of stuff happens. And then Lore and Val are now in the desert. And Lore says, Val, get out of there. He says, I'm on my way. But he does take the pearl. The bad guy says, I'll get you my revenge on you one day, Valerian. Turns out Valerian's box that he has his hand in is broken. So he can't get his arm out. So that's why he's stuck in the other dimension. So he has to escape in the actual city instead of just running through the desert. Guards catch him and shoot a bunch of magnetic balls. I'm skipping past all this. It turns out the city has an underground, and it's really, really, really enormous. We had just said the topmost layer. He actions his way into an elevator. Eventually, Lore fixes the thing on his box, and he saves them. She saves him. He says, I don't know what I would do without you. And then a huge monster is in the desert, gets sent from the city to the desert dimension to get them, but they escape. Phew! That was like 3 pages of notes, folks. Just really awesome concept. The visuals are incredible. The sci-fi actually makes sense and is cool, but they succeeded in their mission. Safely back in exospace, Lore opened up the box to meet the critter. It's scared, but she's nice to it. She notices he's not doing so hot, so they got to get him a treatment. It turns out the treatment is putting him inside of a box and blasting him with uranium, which turns out does make him feel better. He literally does like he like does Ahegao face when the radiation is shooting at him.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, that's the stuff. This movie is I believe PG and is technically appropriate for kids, but in classic French fashion, it's really horny.
Yeah, it is.
I think if I watched it, I'm not saying I wouldn't show it to a kid, but I am saying that if I watched it as a kid, I'd be like, I'm uncomfortable the whole time.
Yeah, it's PG-13.
Like, this is hot.
It's PG-13, and the opening scene on the Zora planet is kind of like Tenchi Muyo and Inuyasha, where they're like, well, it's not boobs if we don't put nipples on it, but there's just fleshy fun bags flopping around everywhere.
PG-13. In many ways, it does feel like a kid's movie, though, except, yeah, it's like, it's very like, I'm 12 and what is this? So anyway, Alex analyzes the pearl. Turns out it contains massive quantities of energy. He learns it's from the planet Mu, which was destroyed 30 years ago. He realizes this is the place from his dream. but he can't access info about the planet because it's restricted to only 5-star generals. So we have a mystery on our hands. Also, again, to reiterate, the flashback, the opening scene we saw happened 30 years ago. He asked her if she's decided to marry him yet. She says, dude, we gotta finish our mission first. He says, okay, fine, I'm gonna get 10 days off right now. After the mission is over, we can go to the most beautiful place in the whole universe for a honeymoon. She says, you do know the honeymoon happens after a wedding, right? Turns out he actually didn't know that. He didn't know what a honeymoon was because he's dumb. Turned out the next part of the mission is top secret. We finally arrive at Alpha, the city of 1,000 planets. It's got 30 million people, 3,000 species, 5,000 languages. It's basically the Citadel from Mass Effect, which maybe was inspired by this comic. We learn all about the different species and sectors of the massive city, which has dozens of artificial biomes. Basically, it's amazing and huge and beautiful, and we don't have time to go into it. It's a shame. But there's like water zone, sci-fi computer zone, fire zone, gas zone.
It's basically Zootopia, but in space.
Yes.
Sure. They arrive back at
Maddy, you should watch Zootopia. You'd actually really like it.
They arrive back at the base, and not the major, but actually the commander is upset with them for being late. Valerian asks what the heck is going on. A year ago, so here's the plot. A year ago, they discovered a radioactive zone in the very center of the city. No one can get in or out alive. No idea what's in there. The air inside is unbreathable, and the zone is growing bigger and bigger. If they don't stop it, it'll destroy Alpha in a week. Weirdly enough, this is the same plot as Annihilation, which is a very different movie. Valerian notes that this is a multiracial city with almost every species in it. So who would want to destroy Alpha? Like, every culture lives here. Who would want to destroy it? The big boss says that they've approved the mission. Oh, when I say the big boss, there's this black guy who they always talk to via hologram, who's in another place. I never could tell where he is in the chain of command. I don't know what's higher than commander. Maybe he's the president of the universe. I don't know. He says they've approved the mission with 2 requirements. 1, Valerian and Lore are responsible for the Major's protection, not his usual guards. That's a direct order from way up. 2, I said the Major. Should have said the commander. Excuse me. 2, they must respect all international and inter-ethnic laws and regulations as they traverse the city. So Lore says she learned about this critter in school. She feeds it jewelry, and sure enough, it spits out a shit ton of copies of the jewelry. Wow, it can copy anything, I guess. The commander enters a room. Oh fuck, it's Azora. He's nearly dead. They're interrogating him. They're being very mean to him. He won't talk. The commander says try one more time, and then if he doesn't talk, just kill him. He also whispers, so he has a personal set of guards. I'll just tell you, they're robots. You find out later. He has these very scary-looking personal guards, and he says, if anything goes wrong with this operation, you know what you have to do. And they're like, yes, master. He's bad. Val and Lore and here's something that's really cool. Val and Lore, they immediately recognize that something's up. Like, right at this point. It's not a big twist at the end of the movie. Oh, you were being used the whole time. Immediately at this point, they're like, something weird's going on. So they insist that Lore hold on to the special creature. The commander's like, I'm going to take it. And Lore's like, no, I'm holding on to it. He backs down. The commander is going to an intergalactic council to give everyone an update. Val goes inside. Lore stays outside as backup. The commander tells everyone what he told us earlier, that the Human Federation is going to launch a special operation and requests the support of all the other different aliens that are on the station. While they're in there, Lore is bored outside. These 3 weird duck people show up. They talk, all 3 of them. They take turns talking. It's like they're all one brain. They seem to know her. They're really annoying, and she asks them about the planet Mule. They tell her Major Senk was an expert on Mule, but he was assassinated a year ago. They also tell her the converter is priceless, so mercenaries are going to be on their way to get it. That happens immediately. She can't read her attacker's DNA, which is apparently really weird. Like, they do a scan, like, oh, who's attacking us? Who's the DNA? And the computer's like, we don't know whose DNA it is. They all go into defensive mode, everyone in the boardroom, and immediately start to evacuate the commander. And who should burst in? Oh, fuck, a squadron of Zoras. That's right. They're the bad guys, kind of, not the good guys. They bust in and start shooting. Well, for now. They bust in and start shooting everyone. But they are shooting everyone with these slime guns that are non-lethal. They cover everyone in goo, thus incapacitating them. Valerian smartly puts
goo that weirdly turns into a blanket.
Yeah, it's like it's goo, and then it very quickly like hardens into like a chrysalis.
Yeah.
Valerian smartly puts an air breather in his mouth just before getting gooed. They take 1 or 2 bodies, presumably the important ones, out of the room and leave. A little robot comes out of Valerian's air breather and cuts him out. Turns out this device was a, oh no, I'm about to get trapped in cocoon goo device, which apparently he had on him. He then saves Lore. Who knows? Maybe goo is actually a common non-lethal type of weapon. Actually, maybe. Anyway, he says you go to
the best. This has come up a couple times now, so I want to give the movie props here. The reason we don't know any of like why maybe they do have cocoon stuff is because the movie never talks about the lore at all. Everything we know about the lore is like impressed upon us about like the way characters interact with each other, and it's
this movie
awesome.
Throws us into what is clearly a very, very detailed and elaborately developed universe, and is like, we're only going to tell you the stuff that actually matters to the story of this movie. That's it. We're going to tell you stuff about the fish people. We're not telling you anything else because we ain't got time for that. And I really love it. I think it's great. So anyway, he says, Lore, you go to the command room to try and track the bad guys. I'm going to go after them to save the commander. Then we get a great, lengthy action scene. I will mention the first thing he does is he's like, Lore, which way do I go? And she goes, head directly west. And he's like, directly west is a wall. And she's like, I told you it was the fastest way. So he fucking just... like the blob, like the fucking blob in X-Men, just blasts his way through like 10 different zones, and it's literally like he bursts through a wall and he's in gas zone. Then he bursts through another wall and he's in the water level. He bursts through another wall and he's in the techno level. It's so cool. I'm guessing the people
who made Mario this movie, were that easy.
Seriously, I'm guessing the people who made this movie were probably like, in the comic, he has these lengthy adventures in all these beautiful places, but they're like, we don't have time for that, but we don't want to not put it in the movie. So it's like, what if he spent 3 seconds in each place? Because he just have so many graphics happening for like 2 seconds. It's amazing. Anyway, he ends up going to a docking bay where the baddies are about to load the commander onto their ship. There's a really funny line where she says, head out docking bay door 81, and he does, and then he's falling through space, and she's like, it was 81. He's like, no, I'm literally now falling through space. I'm gonna fucking die. And then she realizes that she had it upside down. It was actually 18, and he goes, that's okay. We all make mistakes. And I'm pretty sure he's being genuine there, which is one of the parts where I was like, oh, he's literally like, I'm about to die, but... I get it. Everyone makes mistakes. I'm like, that's actually a really nice thing to say. He actually does care about her. Anyway, then we have a scene where he chases their spaceship in his spaceship. Things don't go well. He ends up getting fucked up and pulled into the red zone, basically. They've lost him. They lose contact with Valerian. They don't know where he is. He's in the middle of this place, and he's in a bad way. Lore argues with the Major. Lore argues with the General. The General. In case you're curious, the commander is the guy. The commander is the guy who got kidnapped. He's the one who's obviously bad. The general is the guy below him who actually is. I'll just go ahead and spoil it. He's good. He's not bad.
That's
he just
Octobar.
Yeah, that's Octobar. So Octobar says that these are dangerous enemies who will fuck us all up. She says, nah, man, think about it. When they attacked us, they used non-lethal weapons and didn't hurt anybody. Also, they're from the planet Mule, which Valerian saw them in a dream. Something weird is going on here. Somebody is lying to us. They might not be bad after all. He doesn't believe her. He has her escorted out, but she kicks the guards' ass. The guards' asses, plural. The guards have multiple asses. They cannot all have one collective ass. She She runs into the duckies again. She threatens to shoot them. They tell her the commander was captured because the Zoras figured out he had the converter on him, but turns out they didn't know that actually she had the converter on her. She convinces them to show her how to get to Val. Meanwhile, the General, Octobar, also tries to investigate Planet Mule, because he's like, shit, maybe she was right. Maybe something's up. He finds out even he doesn't have access. He asks the computer, who has authority over this file? And he doesn't like whatever it is he sees. Lore is on an adventure with a pirate guy through a water zone. It doesn't matter. She ends up getting a giant jellyfish, and if she puts the jellyfish on her head, it'll be able to do magic and tell her where Valerian is. But if she leaves it on for more than a minute, it'll start to eat her memories. So she puts it on, and she relives all of Valerian's memories, which starts off being stuff we've already seen, like that whole action scene. She's just seeing all that again. But then it gets past the part where she lost contact with him, and she gets to find out where he is. She sees an area
very weird
code.
Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah. But I like the idea that this is a city of 1,000 planets, so you can find anything here. So the duck guys are like, I don't know, what if we use a memory jelly? Anyway, they said that you can't keep it on more than a minute, otherwise it'll really fuck you up. But after a minute passes, she still hasn't seen what she needs, so she ends up leaving it on a whole extra 10 seconds, which the duckies are very impressed by. So she's really committed to finding... Wow,
a minute and 10 seconds, a new record.
She's really committed to finding Val. At this point, we do see that, like, she very obviously cares for him. She always says, like, I'm just doing it for the mission, but, like, it is very clear that she is rescuing him for emotional reasons and not just because it's the mission. And that's just, again, it's very obvious.
Their chemistry is not very good and is very weird. But when I was starting to write my notes that I failed at, and I asked Maddy to write the notes, but so I was writing at the beginning. My first thing was like, they obviously love each other, but then because the chemistry was bad, I was like, maybe he only likes her. I don't know, and I put like a big question mark next to it.
My interpretation is like this. They clearly both love each other, but she doesn't want to let herself be with him because he needs to grow up.
She's a lesbian.
No, she's like, I would love to be with you if you... She's actually doing something really good. She's doing the thing where you love someone, but they're putting up all these red flags and have all these problems, and instead of ignoring the red flags and getting with them, she's like, no, I'm going to care enough about myself to not be with you unless you fix all these problems. Which is... neat.
Yeah.
She's having boundaries, right? She's taking care of herself. Anyway, she gets to the place she saw in her memory, and she finds Valerian. He passed out. She puts some metagel in him, and he wakes up. They head off to find the commander. Now, the general, who seems to be a good person, bursts into the room where the Zora is being interrogated. He says, the commander's gone. I'm in charge now. Arrest these people doing the interrogation. He says to the Zora, I want to help you, but you gotta tell me what's going on. Why are people attacking you? She says, we have what you need. Back to Val and Lore, they both realize that the Zoras aren't doing anything wrong, and they even say it's perfectly reasonable they would want the converter. It's literally from their planet. It's their planet. They should have it. Then a big thing happens with a fishing pole where Lore accidentally gets herself caught by space fishermen. I'm not going to go into it. And then she gets captured and taken into a restricted area, aka it's like a cultural area where only people from that race are allowed in. If Val bursts in, he'll cause a major diplomatic incident, so he has to find a glamapod to disguise himself. Next, we go on a very long, completely unimportant side quest that is also maybe the best part of the movie, but it is also a side quest. Long story short, over the course of this, the general is slowly going to be doing more and more research and finding out what's going on and finding out that there's a big conspiracy going right to the top. Val goes to a red light district. A cowboy guy convinces him to come inside and says that he does have a glamapod, so we follow him.
Played by Ethan Hawke.
Yes, doing a great job.
Luc Besson really loves to get monumentally great actors to play weird cowboy people in space in his movies.
Does. So anyway, he ends up going into a brothel, and we see the hottest song and dance number on the fucking planet. It's literally Rihanna. and she's a shapeshifter, so she does an insanely hot pole dance while transforming into like 10 different people.
It's
he tells her
awesome.
He tells
so
her
good.
that was super hot, but like it's not really what I'm looking for. I actually need your help. Unfortunately, I got to skip through this part. It's actually really good. We learn quite a bit about her. Eventually, she kind of antagonizes and taunts him, and he pulls his hidden gun on her, and we realize she's a blue water blobby thing. She's Chaos, the god of destruction. She keeps toying with him. Oh, also he shoots Ethan Hawke. She keeps toying with him, but eventually she tells him her real name is Bubble. He says, if you help me find my partner, I'll set you free. She says, even if you set me free, I'm an illegal immigrant. Freedom doesn't mean anything to me. He says, I work for the government. I can pull strings. I can get you some ID papers. They have so much chemistry, actually. The two of them have a genuine spark, which is really cool. It's really, really sweet. He's like, finds someone that he really cares about, honestly. He's mesmerized by her dance, but not in a sexual way. It's like, wow, you're amazing, right? Anyway, they escape from the brothel. She basically envelops him inside of herself and then does her shapeshift to be a disguise. So he says, all right, let's do it. Let's go in there. So they disguise themselves in here. Meanwhile, they're basically in there. They're basically dressing Laura up to be beautiful. While they're sneaking in, they have a heart-to-heart. Val says Laura's the most important thing in the world to him. He lost her because he's stupid, and all he knows how to do is joke and flirt instead of being vulnerable. She says, maybe you should try being vulnerable. They join a procession of servants, all delivering dishes to the big king critter. One by one, the servants approach. The king tries the dishes and then rejects it as gross, while the proprietor lady is scared but he doesn't like it. Meanwhile, Laura shows up wearing a beautiful white wedding dress and the biggest hat in the world. It looks like the movie The Holy Mountain by Alejandro Jodorowsky. She's carrying only a giant lemon. Wait a second. The camera then shows her from above, and we realize her head is poking through the top of the hat. Her brains is the dish. The king grabs the lemon and squeezes it on her head, and then grabs a tool to slice her brain off. She realizes what's happening, and a big action scene happens. A whole bunch of action happens, and eventually they rescue each other. So Valerian and Laureline and Bubble all escape. Okay. Meanwhile,
it was after this scene that I checked to see if my library had all of these books, because I was sold at this point.
A huge fleet appears as backup for the general. The consul has authorized him to take command of the operation since the commander has been, captured. He says, okay, I'll do it, but I need full access to these files. I need it to succeed in the mission. He gets access. He actually gets access to Mule. Turns out there was a war between two other planets which destroyed Mule, which was, quote, uninhabited. He asks who's in charge of the operation, but again is denied access. Now he knows something stinks to high heaven. They all land in a giant trash heap. Bubble fucking dies? She's been in the movie for 10 minutes and she dies. She was injured in the fighting. Kind of realistic, but also kind of lame.
Yeah, this was one of the bones that I had to pick because, I did not feel we spent enough time with Bubble to make her death emotional.
Super agree.
It felt very hollow, and I felt bad for Bubble. She deserves better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, we don't have time to go into it, but all three named black characters in the movie are killed for plot reasons, which is not fun. But
oh yeah, that's true. So anyway, the general. Yeah, sorry, we got to blast through this. The general notices that the commander's personal guard is still in the room. He's like, what are they doing here? The assistant says that the commander programmed them personally. They can't be removed. So, it's totally fine that the bad guys' secret police are just hanging around. Yeah. So now, Lore and Val go inside the dead zone for real. We've entered the third act. Val says, whoa, wait, we can breathe just fine? Okay, we've clearly been lied to. The air here is fine. The commander clearly knew what was here all along, and he's right. A shimmering barrier. A pearl emerges. He tells Laura to call the general for backup, but Laura says, why don't you do that for once? And they both enter the shimmer. Inside the shimmer is basically a giant empty hangar-looking place with a bunch of pearls. Oh, in case you're curious, when I say pearls, the species are called pearls.
Yes.
So the pearl
the
says... Yeah, the Zora says, "Follow me," and guides them along. So I'm gonna have to skip past here, even though it's actually really important. Here's where we learn the whole like plot of the damn movie. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it turns out that when they die, pearls release their souls and memories as energy into space, and this one chose Valerian to safeguard her soul and her memories. A really sweet sign where she says, "I'm happy to see you," the mother does, and Valerian says, "Same here." I mean, she is too. So it's like he can feel her
Mm-hmm.
emotions inside of him, which is cool. Um, we learn about what happened. Here's what happened. They lived in paradise. They harvest pearls. We already know this. 3 times a year, they get back to the Earth to rejuvenate the cycle. One day, above their planet, 2 civilizations they didn't know fought a war. Aboard a salvaged vessel, they drifted in space for many years. It took time for them to understand the ship and absorb the vast knowledge stored in its database. They were just like adrift. Through it, they learned math, history, physics, I wrote history again, philosophy. They learned all about the different species in the universe they never knew existed. Finally, they learned all about humans, who were the ones who destroyed their planet. The pain of their loss hasn't faded, but they have let go of their anger. But one day, they were picked up by scrap dealers traveling the galaxy. After a few years, the scrap dealers finally went back to Alpha to sell their cargo, including them. Then they lived in Alpha for years, watching and learning from all the different cultures. Eventually, they acquired all the knowledge they needed to build a giant ship. They built a giant machine that will restore their home. All they need left is the converter and the pearl. They say, "We are survivors, but that makes us witnesses. Witnesses of a past the humans want to erase forever. We can forgive, but how can we ever forget?" Val and Laura's whole mission was just to fuck up their plan to remake their homeworld. They wake up the commander. We now learn the truth. The commander was on board the ship at the battle. He was the commander of the big battle that destroyed their planet. He promises he was completely sure. He's like, "No, the planet was uninhabited. They gave me reports that said it was uninhabited." Val and Laura accuse him of either being too preoccupied with the battle to see the signs of life, or he knew the planet was inhabited and didn't care. He finally confesses. He says, "A fuck up on this scale would have exposed the human government to enormous consequences, sanctions, reparations, ruin. The economy would be destroyed and they'd be kicked out of Alpha, and humans would lose their place of supremacy in the galactic order." He then says, "Our council saw fit to protect our citizens." So now we know that it goes all the way to the top. It's not just the commander saving his own skin. It's like the ruling council of humanity authorized this whole thing. He says, "If you stop us," he literally says, "If you stop me, it'll wreck our economy." Which this movie's politics are actually very good and very overt. Anyway, then the aliens, or the fish people, the Zoras, say, "You are your." He says that that they're the enemy, or that he's the enemy. And then the Zora says, "You're your own worst enemy, Commander. Unless you make peace with your past, you won't have a future." Then there's a big argument, because they want the converter, and Val, weirdly, won't give it to them. He's like, "I'm a soldier. I follow orders. I totally agree with you. This is all fucked up, but we need to tell everyone about this and let the courts handle it." Lore is like, "No, we can't let the courts handle it. We can't trust anyone." And then she says, "You clearly don't understand how to love anyone, because you think you don't love people more than you love rules and the chain of command." Then she gives a weirdly out of nowhere speech that's actually kind of beautiful too. She says that love is more powerful than anything and breaks all rules and laws and overpowers any army or government. Then she says that real love is forgiveness and, more importantly, trust. She basically says that the fish people are a model of pure love because they've been fucked over so much, and yet they literally did say that they forgive humans for what they did. Then he says, "I would die for you," and she says, "I'm not asking you to die for me, I'm asking you to trust me." Then, really, really pointed line, Lore says to the fish people, "We are to blame for the loss of your planet, and we'd be honored to help you get it back." Which I think is a surprisingly powerful sentence, that she, who didn't literally do it, says, "I'm responsible for this." Oh no, it's bad guys. Okay, so basically, at this point, there is just a bunch of action where the commander, the general is gonna fuck everyone up. But then, because he's like, I got to do my mission. But then Valerian convinces them to turn off the signal jamming so that he can talk to the general. So he pleads with the general. He says, "General, stop the assault." And the major considers this and says, "Is the commander with you?" And then the general says, "We're going to activate the explosions in line with your orders. Commander, do you have anything to tell me that will enable me to suspend the assault?" Oh, I should have said, sorry, they lined the whole ship with explosives. Then, so the commander says, "A soldier will always choose death over humiliation. Annihilate them all." So the commander's special forces robots start attacking everyone. So basically, to make sure this is clear, since I kind of zoomed past it, the general was good, and he was convinced to not do the bad thing. But then the commander said, "Hey, secret forces, y'all fuck everything up." So a bunch of fighting happens, but they win. The general and his assistant help them win the fight and deactivate the bombs, and the ship manages to blast off, crashing out of Alpha and into space and into exospace. Yay! The captain, who was being good, survived. There was also a captain who was being good. And the commander is still alive, but tied up by rope. At the very end, basically Laura says, "You know what? Maybe I do like you after all." And she starts to kiss him, and he says, "So is this yes?" AKA, "Yes, I'll marry you." And she says, "It's a maybe." And he's confused because he's asking her to marry him, but instead she's like, "I want to fuck." And he's like, "So does that mean we're going to get married?" And she's like, "I just want to fuck." And he goes, "I'm confused."
Maybe he thinks marriage is fucking.
Yeah, and he goes, "I'm confused. Is this how love works?" And that's the end of the movie.
So, I have, it's a series of them, but I didn't write all of them down. But when he is in, alternate dimension Midgar, he's walking through, there's a whole lot of, no, it's not an alternate dimension Midgar. It's when he's trying to find, Bubble. He's walking through, and there's every different kind of, prostitute possible propositions him.
Yes.
And he turns them all down, but he never says no to any of them. He has some excuse for every single prostitute. And my favorite one is this like drag queen in Vegas, peacock feathers comes up and is like, "Hey, you want to play?" And he goes, "I'm allergic to feathers."
Yeah.
He keeps walking.
That one's great.
It's so good. I also love the I forget what they're called, but the big burly ogre aliens, the one that's actually getting her dressed, is so nice and has the like
She's
super nice.
So bad.
He's like the super nice like clothing designer type, where he's like, "Oh my god, you look so great in this like energy," but he doesn't speak. He just conveys all of this in his face, like the way he's holding up dresses. It's priceless. He's great. Love him. What about you, Eli?
Yeah, I've got a couple. I'm
sorry I'm making y'all rush so much.
It's okay. Don't mind.
So like there's a cut where the captain, I think it was Octobar, but he's like he says something like, "This does not smell good." And then it smash cuts to Laureline and Valerian falling out of a pile of garbage. It's just
I love a cute little. I love like a movie like editing cut joke.
Yeah,
so good.
Yeah, I do too. And then I think we skipped over it, but when they're talking, when Valerian and Laureline are talking about having the Zora princess inside of him.
Yep.
Her soul. She's like, "You mean to tell me you've had a woman inside of you since the beginning?" And like they banter for a bit, and then they're like, he's like, we gotta go, and she just goes, ladies first.
As the resident trans woman here, that's not problematic. That's hilarious.
I'm glad like you're okay with it, because I was like, I don't know, like, as a trans man, is this okay for me to laugh at? But,
No, I thought it was super funny.
Okay, great.
Also, you get the feeling like he's not offended. He's just like, no, I'm not trans.
Yeah, but
which
I'm
is
not.
exactly what people. Which although he totally is. Let's be serious.
Maddy?
I said he totally is. Let's be serious here. But I whispered it for dramatic effect. But I whispered it too quietly.
But yeah, those, and I fucking love Bubble.
Bubble's awesome.
Yeah,
She's great. I really wish we'd gotten more of her.
The most generous read is that they could only get so many minutes of Rihanna because she's too expensive. But also, it could just be that the movie was written this way. Who knows, right?
She was really good.
I mean,
like,
the whole movie
is we're gonna
introduce an incredible character that's on screen for 5 minutes. But for Bubble, they should have made an exception and been like, no, she's a main character now. You know.
Yeah.
It's a shame. It's a shame. You hate to see it. A quick
John Goodman was the guy who was trying to get the converter.
He's so good.
Oh wow.
So a few things that I have. When all the bad guys show up, like when the commander shows up or whatever at the end, and he's like, I have a noble cause. Valerian says, I'm also here for a noble cause. It's called the law. Which is a really funny line. Also, when the first time we're talking to like the little duck dudes, she's really mad at him, and she's like, get out of my face, you freaking pigeons. And as they walk off, one of them goes, she called us pigeons. The other one goes, what's a pigeon? Also, when he's fending off the prostitutes, one of them says something sexy in French to him, and he goes, I don't speak French, which is funny because this whole thing is French.
It's a French movie.
Yes.
Little cute little subtle joke there. And finally, there's one more that I didn't have as a memo. I actually put it in, but I skipped it, so I want to go back up to it.
While you look, I have one more. Speaking of the pigeons, they're like, we know how humans work. They're so predictable. That's why we can predict the future or whatever. And Laura is like, well, clearly you've never met a woman. And then she does some badass thing.
Shoots one of them in the arm.
I think so. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, the point where I realized that this movie would be fixed if they had better chemistry is all of their solo scenes are great. Like him with Bubble and him on the other scene, the big market, great. Her with the pigeons, her doing her thing is great. Just when they're together and their love is supposed to unite the universe at the end, that's kind of
one thing I really like about Valerian himself is that he has this emo, pouty, whiny boy attitude, but he's extremely competent, which I think is cool. It's like, oh, you act like a tiny child, but you're actually extremely good at killing people and detective work. You are the first person to realize something is up. Your empathy for the Zora creatures actually is the impetus of the plot. So it's really interesting that he has a lot of... Basically, he has he has like a million positive attributes. He just also has an annoying bad attitude, which is an interesting combination of character. It's an interesting combination of characteristics, right? I don't have any more memos, but I do want to mention real quick. I noticed a few interesting themes here. First of all, the political theme of like literally like you need to give reparations when you destroy like when you do colonialism. It's always interesting to see Europeans wrestle with colonialism. Usually they do it in a way that I find a little, I don't know, like, yeah, we feel sad about it, but also what can you do? And this movie really isn't that at all. Like, it's like, no, this is bad. You shouldn't have done it. It sucks, and you need to make it right. And the heroes don't need to be convinced of the morality of it. They have a
Mhm.
basic level of human morality, so they immediately understand what the right thing to do is. They don't have to, Valerian doesn't have to go through a moral journey. As soon as he realizes what's going on, he's like, that's fucked up, which is cool. It's really interesting. I want to say more about it. We don't have time, which is really a shame. But other thing, this movie has an interesting little recurring theme of dual natures and identity. In the first big scene, you have the whole 2 dimensions thing where he's a hologram, but he's also a real person. He's being this person, but he's also being this person. Like the whole duality, and like of being and like being like a hologram and being 2 places at once. And then you have a literal shapeshifter, and then you have him and the shapeshifter inhabiting the same body at once, and then you have the fact that he literally has a fish lady inside of him, and there's 2 souls inhabiting one body. And then I think there's 1 or 2 other instances of that I've already forgotten. So it's got this recurring theme of mistaken identity. Oh, right, and also, this is something really cool. The movie often, in multiple times throughout the movie will show you a scene or show you an event, and then later show you the event from a different point of view. We see Valerian's crash from 2 different points of view. We see the fight between the soldiers, the fight above the planet that starts off the movie's plot from 3 different points of view at 3 different points throughout the movie. Repeated flashbacks. We also have so many cuts to other cultures and other big characters. The movie really, I think, makes a powerful statement of like multicultural, but also multiple perspectives. Like it's like this universe is built of thousands and thousands of different people and cultures, all with their different perspectives on the world. And I think it actually really effectively does that. And then of course the personal story of personal responsibility and making amends. It's very liberal, and y'all know I'm not a liberal. It's very, very liberal, but I respect it. It's a very, it shows the intention of the liberal mindset, which is humanity, warmth, compassion, and empathy. And I'm not gonna fucking tear it apart for not being Marxist enough, but like it really does have this beauty to it. It's this idealized liberal mindset that I really liked. All right, that's all I got. I just wanted to holler about that for a little bit because I like this movie.
Yeah. So next week we are playing 3 chapters of Brave Story A New Traveler, the prologue, chapter 1 and chapter 2. It's about an hour of game. It's not very long at all. Also, as of a couple days ago, we have unlocked The Last of Us, so that is coming soon. We also had a commission for Dandy Dungeon, like we talked about last time. Don't know which one will happen first. It basically just depends. Dandy Dungeon is a lot longer than like gameplay wise than Last of Us is, so we'll see how it all lines up. But yeah, exciting things coming on. Also, I had forgot about this one until right now, but merch has been relaunched. If you want to get right now, there's just a couple things up on our store. I'm working on a lot more, but all of that is over at our Ko-Fi at www.rpgbook.club. So check that out. Buy some stuff. Get our cartoony Lost Odyssey faces on your chest because that's where we belong. For RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
I want to say, I don't think I did this movie justice because we were going so fast. If this movie sounded like it was good, you should watch it. Anyway, I'm Maddy Grace Webbin.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, toodaloo.